Good morning to you. Mark Sutton of HurricaneTrack.com here with your hurricane outlook and discussion. Still taking a look at Tropical Storm Eta, on track to be the longest-lived November tropical cyclone on record for what it's worth. And we're not done with it yet, but at least we didn't have severe impacts in this part of Florida down here. We'll take a look at what we have in just a moment, but it could have been a lot worse. We know how that story goes. Still some impacts, though. Not going to downplay that it brought flooding rain. It has caused some cancellations for school and work. It's made travel difficult through this area. But all in all, I think we can agree that we were pretty lucky with Eta here in the United States, considering the effects that it had in Central America with that landfall and then the lingering rain and the flooding and the loss of life down there. We didn't have to deal with that anywhere to that extent anyway for Florida, and it doesn't look like that's ever going to happen with this particular system. So here's the latest from the National Hurricane Center, the 10 a.m. Eastern Time advisory. Wind coming down a little bit, 60 miles per hour. Minimum pressure is coming up, and when the pressure goes up, the wind comes down usually, and in this case, that is what is happening. Pressure 994. Eta is now moving southwestward, and it's part of that pivot maneuver that it's going to do. There's an upper level low kind of trapped in here, about like that, and Eta is kind of going around that. It came up through the Keys. Now it's going south and southwest, and then once this upper level low gets completely entrained and dissipates, big old area of high pressure out over the Atlantic will steer Eta back towards the north. But Gulf temperatures are too cold now, and there's too much dry air around, and it's just not going to be able to do much, despite what the models were indicating for the past couple of days. It's just been a strange year for the computer models. They're either not seeing systems, they're overdoing their intensity, or in many cases that we've seen, they're not seeing the intensity right before landfall until it's too late. We saw that with Isaias, we saw that with Hannah. Before that, we saw it with Laura. I mean, pretty much everything strengthened right up until landfall, and at least in this case, for Florida, Eta broke that precedence, did not do so for the most part in terms of the impacts down here in Nicaragua, even though it weakened right before landfall. Boy, it certainly strengthened in that last 12-hour period leading up to when it approached the coast down there. Very, very strong, and the models just didn't see that early on. It's been quite an interesting year, and hopefully people can go back and look and try to figure out what happened. Is it missing aircraft data and ship data? I don't know, because of the pandemic and the lack of travel and the extra data points. Lots and lots of stuff to be studied after we're done with 2020. But the upper level low itself is sitting down here somewhere, and here's Eta in the satellite presentation. A little bit better organized this morning, and there's still some fairly deep convection, not that impressive though, bringing some showers and thunderstorms, occasionally some thunderstorms, very heavy rain from time to time over parts of South Florida, and even the Keys, where I am. I'm down in Key West, in case you didn't know that. Didn't mention it yet at the top of the update, but yep, we're down here. We set up equipment from Vero Beach area all the way through the Keys here. What do we have, like 5 or 6 cameras set up to just monitor what's going on? And they didn't see anything too interesting. I'll show you a look at that in just a moment. But we learned something. We learned where we can put them for future events, and that'll help us down the road. I'll talk about that towards the end. But Eta definitely caught up in this larger pattern here. That upper level low sitting down here. It's pivoting around it. Maybe the pivot point is about right there. So Eta is going to come around. This will go away and dissipate. And then Eta is going to come back north, maybe towards Florida as some kind of a remnant storm or something. Who knows, right? I don't think it's going to be too impactful. The water temperatures kind of help to dictate that. I mean, they really do. And in this case, unlike Zeta, where the 26 Celsius line, which is right here, with Zeta, it was much farther to the north. And Zeta was coming up and headed towards Louisiana, Mississippi, and it had warmer water temperatures to work with, and the models were in excellent agreement overall. There's a pretty good consensus that Zeta was going to be strong. In the case of Eta here, it's been kind of back and forth with the models. It's been, definitely a waffle scenario, waffling back and forth. But one thing that we cannot deny, and that is, and there's no, ambiguity whatsoever, that is the fact that water temperatures have cooled off. The 26 Celsius line is right here, and that is about 79.5 Fahrenheit, or about 80 degrees if you just want to round it up. There's 27 Celsius right there, that's about 81. There's 28, that's about 82. And yes, Eta has moved out here and is going to get into this warmer water, and it will have a chance to develop some deeper convection, but it has entrained and become surrounded by very dry air, to be quite honest with you. It's just lots of dry air through here in the atmosphere in the mid-levels, and dry air does not allow for deep thunderstorms to develop. And without deep thunderstorms, you do not get a lowering of the pressure, and you can't generate the convection that keeps that circle going, the loop. And you warm the atmosphere with the condensation. Condensation's a warming process. None of that can happen efficiently when you have abundant dry air throughout the region like you do in this area where Eta is located. And so the water temperatures are not going to help much because they are cooling off, because it's November 9th. I mean, come on. Climatology was eventually going to catch up with these systems and not allow them to be anywhere near their peak intensity, which is a great thing, obviously, especially for us. Well, I'm in Florida, so I say us here in Florida. You know what I mean. But it wasn't the case farther to the south, where it made landfall in Nicaragua and brought a lot of serious conditions to Central America. Water temperatures down there, the environment very moist. That was a different situation. Up here, closer to the continent, let's get a different color so it shows up better. Closer to the continent, it's there's more dry air around. It's just the way it is. So looking at the larger radar picture here, you get an idea. Here's the center of circulation well to the west of the Dry Tortugas and Key West and vicinity, but there's still some bands coming through, rotating around this larger circulation, kind of partly related to the upper level low that's down here, and Eta, the tropical storm. They're all kind of doing this little dance, if you will. Even some onshore flow continuing up here to the north. The winds through here will gradually diminish as Eta pulls away and dips farther to the south and west. And it'll be a pretty good week ahead overall, which is good. You folks down here in Florida along the I-95 corridor, especially in these big metro areas, you can begin to dry out. The water can drain away and life can kind of resume. It was definitely a wet event. That was well advertised by the models, and that came true. That impact happened. We got more than 10 inches of rain in several places, and the impacts have been pretty significant. And, I mean, you see it on social media. You see the local news down here talking about it. And that part was very well advertised. But the intensity of Eta, maybe becoming a hurricane, maybe a strong hurricane, maybe not, that was different. And I think part of that is owed to the fact that it's November, hard to deal with climatology mixing in with these potentially strong hurricanes. And the models this year have had a struggle. They've had a challenge. It's been challenging. And that's something we can talk about maybe more at the end of the season with some kind of a roundtable discussion with a handful of people. Maybe we can utilize Zoom and do like an end of the year. How did things go? What did we get right? Just something to think about. I just made that up, and maybe I'll follow through with it. But it would be neat to know, wouldn't it? Like, what's the deal with the season? So we set out several camera systems. This is our dashboard that we have on our HurricaneTrack Insider site. We provide this to our crowdfunding folks. You help us to fund the project, and we give you something that no one else in the world gives you. That's the way I look at it. And you can see we've got our Twitter embedded, the radar is in there. This is the chat with all the people that are helping out. Really, really neat. And this is what we do. So I just wanted to show you, here's a look at things. You know that expression, here's a live look at whatever. Well, they say that a lot on the internet. Well, here's a live look at Vero Beach. Wind is calming down. There's not even any whitecaps out here on the water. So that's good. Camera in Boca Raton. I thought this was going to die out overnight. It's only got, I thought I only had one battery in this box. Maybe we put two in there. And when we put two batteries in, one will run the MiFi, the other runs the camera. It goes for 80 hours. And when you just put one battery, they both share, it's half of that, or 40 hours, right? So it'll be interesting to see when our friend Marcel goes to pick this up, and I ask him to open it. Hey, did we put two batteries in there? But anyway, this is the that grape, sea grape is what it's called. I keep forgetting it's not mangrove. This is the sea grape bush vegetation. Kind of a rough Atlantic this morning, no big deal though. A lot of this debris that you see up here, the water didn't get this high up. I watched the feed, I looked at it in time lapse, and the water line didn't make it up here. The high water maybe was about right there. A lot of this blew in because you did have some pretty strong onshore wind here. I would say that some of those ground wind speeds up to about 10 feet off the ground were easily 50 miles per hour. And that'll blow some sand and some debris and whatever. And yes, there were some power outages, and we saw that. It had some impacts, but luckily Florida avoided sort of the worst of things from this event. I just noticed that my southernmost point camera just went offline. That's a bummer. This is the camera that we set up not far from my hotel here. You can see some of these little thunderstorms out here in the distance, and maybe they'll drop some water spouts or something. We could see something like that as the crew and I head out. This is Big Pine Key. This area is where Irma really had a big impact. And it's interesting because the bandwidth is lower here. There's just not as strong of a signal. So this feed looks a lot more pixelated. Isn't it interesting how things work like that? We notice these things. And then this one over on the, what is this, the north side of Key West, I think it is, right across from that GM dealership there from Jack Niles. Nice and calm. Yesterday this was all choppy, and there was waves in here. And there's little ripple, wind waves in here, little ripples, but nothing like it was yesterday, and certainly no big deal at all. And then I'm going to refresh this. I don't know why our southernmost point cam went offline. There it is. It's back. Hot diggity. Sometimes it'll just go off. Who knows? Maybe the network needs to take a breather. This is the other camera. Some people taking some pictures, and there's some waves splashing up 90 miles to the north of Cuba. And this is important because we know that these locations work for us. And I'll tell you this, and then I'll sign off, and we're going to get out of here. We know that these locations will work for us. Boca Raton, put a check mark here. That worked well. Good signal. Nice area to watch. If there's ever a significant hurricane, it's only a matter of time, right? The Key West shot over here on Roosevelt Avenue on the south side near my hotel, the Hampton Inn. The Big Pine Key cam worked pretty good. Maybe there's another spot over there that we could use in the future. We'll see. The Key West cam on the north side works very well. And then, of course, the famous landmark here, the southernmost point cam, that worked very well. So if we get a very impactful event down the road, we're going to have more cameras. I mean, we've got a lot already. I just brought only about a half a dozen or so with me this time. It's all funded by you guys that help out, that are in the position to do so, and not everybody is. But for those that can, this is what we do with it. And if you want to get involved and help us out for the future, help us to help you, as they say, that is how you do it. And it's not too late. We don't just go away at the end of hurricane season. Far from it. And our current group of patrons and anyone that signs on anytime, you'll see we grow together. We keep you updated in the off season. A lot of projects coming up. And we're ready. We're going to be ready for winter. We cover winter storms. And the hurricane season's not over. I'll talk about that more tomorrow. There are some signals for more named storms out there, but nothing that should impact land areas anytime soon. So at least there's that. All right. Well, let me get this done and post it online, and then we're going to get out, start picking up those cams, and make our way back towards North Carolina. I'm going to go and visit a couple of people that have really helped out with us this season, who are here in Florida, and say hello to them and show them my gratitude. And then Mike Farrow, my partner, and I will head back to the Carolinas. Brent Lynn will go back to the Virgin Islands, where he's from. He's our other helper here. And hopefully that'll be that for the landfall threat this hurricane season. As always, thank you for tuning in. I do appreciate it very, very much. I hope you always learn something from these videos. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. I'll talk to you some more tomorrow.